My sixth general heathen topic tonight is the law. We should be extremely grateful that we have so much law. Other Reconstructionist religions envy us, or should. We have a vast range of stuff to give us information. We have reports in Latin from different periods and different places. We have a huge tradition of vernacular storytelling in the sagas that spills over into histories and has a remarkable degree of accuracy and clarity. We have an actual primer, the Prose Edda, written with the express purpose of explaining the stories of the gods and the terminology used in the skaldic poems. It also goes on to give enough information on the meters and conventions to enable one to write one's own skaldic poetry, and that in itself is useful in analyzing the stuff because it's remarkably complex. We have a lot of that skaldic poetry left, both in sagas and in the Prose Edda, by way of examples. We've lost some long skaldic poems that I would love to have seen, or we have only fragments of them. We've clearly lost an awful lot of our epic and tragic poetry, but what we have is remarkable. And then we have the Eddic poetry, a collection of poems on the deeds of the gods and of the great heroes, put together by someone. We have a great section missing in the middle. We're missing almost all of a tremendous poem on Sigurd. But what we have is of inestimable value, as illustrated by the fact that there are very few Eddic poems extant anywhere else except in that one manuscript. What else do we have? We just have an amazing amount of stuff. Oh, I should also mention Flateyr book and its peculiar short stories, the Thaitr, the stories of wonders, accounts of things like Volsi. We have an amazing amount of stuff. We should be grateful above all to 2 or 3 or 4 Icelandic farm families who apparently commissioned somebody to make a book and then kept it carefully in the eaves of their farmhouse for hundreds and hundreds of years. Those are the books of our lore. Very little, some paper manuscripts of the Prose Edda and so forth. Very little has survived in other copies. Largely it's one copy kept by one family and commissioned by one family. People often deprecate the lore by saying, oh, it was all written by monks. But there were no monks in Iceland. The copyists were parish priests doing it for an extra piece of money, or who knows, a clerk in training. Most of the manuscripts are extremely simple affairs, extremely plain and small. There are no great illuminated manuscripts of our lore. On the other hand, we shouldn't revere it as if it was scripture. It's very difficult to know how much has been changed by the Christian prism through which it's inevitably passed. We can guess. The very act of writing things down is alien to the original heathen tradition. Ours was a tradition that valued oral extemporizing of poetry, not prose storytelling, not recording things in writing and then viewing the exact words of the written version as more important than the new creation in the fire of inspiration. Skaldic poetry, with all its immense complexity, was intended to be composed off the cuff, under the influence of drink. In Anglo-Saxon England, we have a contrasting situation that illustrates how little we could have had from Scandinavia if things had been different in Iceland. We have Beowulf, one long, tremendous epic with an awful lot of Christian influence and content in it. We have one page of a second epic, Finnsburg Fragment. And the rest of it is almost entirely Christian. The Dream of the Rood is a Christian story told in heathen terms. The Genesis, the same, is based on an Old Saxon original which does just that. We know hardly anything about Anglo-Saxon heathenry. We know a tremendous amount about Icelandic heathenry. So our lore is valuable, but we should be skeptical about how pure it is. We should also remember, above all, that those who originally composed the poems, those who originally told the stories, and those who had the wisdom that was behind those stories and those particular poems that we have, didn't think in terms of scripture and of received wording. They thought in terms of knowledge and of creation. We don't know how many stories we have lost. We should be very grateful for what we do have. We should mine it for information and cross-check it and try to understand it and mull it over. But at the same time, it is not a Bible to be memorized and trotted out as a dead thing, to have a competition for how accurately you can recall the words. Those words are a door through which one steps in order to understand.